I'm Commissioner Jim Donelon, and this is your Louisiana Insurance News. Coming up, Gustav and Ike cause millions in damage, generate thousands of claims, and spark questions from insurance consumers. Plus, what you need to know about protecting yourself against insurance fraud. And help for seniors who are struggling with Medicare may be just a phone call away. These stories and more coming up on your Louisiana Insurance News. Hello, I'm Jim Donelon, your Commissioner of Insurance, and I'm pleased to bring you this edition of your Louisiana Insurance News. It's hard to believe, but some residents across South Louisiana are still recovering from the effects of Hurricanes Gustav and Ike back in September. Destroyed roofs, damaged property, and dents in their wallets from a costly evacuation have all added up to as much as $20 billion in losses. The Louisiana Department of Insurance has been hard at work since before landfall, helping consumers weather the storm and its aftermath. While Hurricane Gustav was churning in the open waters of the Caribbean, Trent Beach and others at the Louisiana Department of Insurance were preparing for the storm.
It briefed everyone in the department on what to expect, what their duties were, where they should be, made sure we were briefed on emergency procedures, and communication was key to be sure that we could talk to everyone and they would understand that what needed to be done immediately after the hurricane as soon as we could, so we could respond to the people of Louisiana.
The Department of Insurance implemented its Continuity of Operations Plan, also known as COOP. The COOP plan ensures that the department will continue to function with minimal interruptions in the event of a disaster.
Because we set up that communication system, I was contacted, other people that work for me were contacted, and whoever could report, whoever didn't have enough damage that was severe enough to keep them home, we reported to DOI and immediately started manning the phones.
A steady flow of calls followed after the storm, and for those who didn't have service, disaster response teams were sent out to sites across the state to assist.
What that is disaster response centers where we send people from property and casualty, and they sit there so that people out there who don't have phone service, who don't have internet connections, can physically drive up, walk in, ride a bike, whatever they need to do, and speak with someone from the Department of Insurance.
Beach says the department provided all types of assistance, but the most important role we play is providing a link between residents and their insurer.
I would think the biggest thing would be is to help them contact their insurance company so they can understand what role the insurance company plays for them. And if they're not being treated fairly by the insurance company, their agent, or their adjuster, to contact us and let us know so we can speak on their behalf.
As soon as the storms passed, consumers began reaching out to the Department of Insurance for help. Many of them had questions about coverage and claims. So we asked Clarissa Preston, Deputy Commissioner of our Office of Consumer Advocacy, to give us the most frequently asked questions her office received, as well as the answers her staff gives out.
The most frequently asked questions we've received are questions about additional living expenses and are you actually entitled to them. Also, hurricane and named storm deductibles, what are they and when do they apply? Do I have coverage for flood if my house did indeed flood? And then problems with adjusters or public adjusters, those types of questions. Typically called additional living expenses, if someone is out of their home and can't live in their home, the insurance company will provide coverage for those additional living expenses. We experienced some mandatory evacuations with both Gustav and Ike in certain areas, and people had to go into hotel rooms and expend money that they didn't normally or anticipate that they would have to. And some of the insurance policies allow for coverage for additional living expenses or reimbursement for expenses for mandatory evacuation. So it's important to check your policy to see if you have that coverage and if a deductible actually applies to that coverage. Unfortunately, during storm season and when there are losses, that's when people actually read their policies and find out that there's a named storm or a hurricane deductible. These deductibles have been used for past couple of years here in Louisiana and also in other 18 coastal states. So it's not something that's new, but many of us don't read that in our policies. The hurricane and named storm deductibles are between 2 and 5%. And it's 2 and 5% of your average coverage A, which is the dwelling amount. So that can be a good substantial deductible that you have to pay. All we can really do is talk about what we can do to plan better moving forward, and knowing that you have that deductible and how you can save for these types of losses. And many times catastrophes come and we're just not prepared for them, but what we need to do is be better prepared. We need to have a savings account or the availability on a credit card or something to cover those losses if they don't meet the deductible, because there won't be a payment by that insurance company. Many folks are not aware that flood is not covered under a typical homeowner's policy. That's something that's provided through the National Flood Insurance Program. You can purchase a flood policy through your regular insurance agent, but it's 2 separate policies. So you want to make sure that if you're living anywhere near the coast that you have flood insurance, and it is a separate policy and a separate premium. Now, after the storm, you're going to have adjusters who are coming out, and they're representing the insurance company that's providing coverage. They may work for the company, or they may be an independent adjuster that that company hires. But there's also public adjusters out there who will work on your behalf to help negotiate the claim. Public adjusters are usually brought in when there's major controversy between you and the insurance company as to what the settlement amount is, and they're more in tune to what it costs to put on a roof and to actually repair flooring and sheetrock and things like that. So if you're unfamiliar with those terms, you may want to look at a public adjuster, but typically your regular company adjuster or independent adjuster that works for that company will be able to settle your claim.
If you have any questions about your insurance after a storm, or at any time, call the Office of Consumer Advocacy at 1-800-259-5300 or email them at consumeradvocacy, all one word, at ldi.state.la.us. And a little later in our show, Clarissa will be back to explain what steps you can take before hurricane season ends later this year to protect your home and property. Coming up next on your Louisiana Insurance News, what the Louisiana Department of Insurance is doing to protect you and Louisiana against insurance fraud. And we'll tell you about a free program that is helping our seniors understand and manage their health insurance. This is Insurance Commissioner Jim Donelon. No matter where you are in Louisiana, you are subject to the effects of severe weather. Before the skies are threatening, here are some important tips you should follow. Make sure you have proper homeowners insurance and flood insurance. Make a record of your personal property. Protect your insurance policies and other important documents. And lastly, plan for the worst. Make a plan of action in case a storm hits. Welcome back to your Louisiana Insurance News. Our seniors often face a dizzying and sometimes confusing pool of choices about their health care, and they're often left on their own to chart a course. But now they can navigate through those turbulent waters with SHIP, the Senior Health Insurance Information Program. Vicki Dufresne, director of the SHIP program, understands why it's difficult for seniors to get a handle on their Medicare coverage.
Because there are so many things changing in Medicare on a daily basis.
And that's why she feels so strongly about the benefits of SHIP.
We can educate and provide unbiased information about Medicare and all the factors surrounding Medicare.
The SHIP program offers counseling to any Louisiana senior who is eligible for Medicare free of charge. The program counselors will answer questions for seniors who are evaluating, planning, buying, or using health insurance. For example, want to know what is covered under Medicare? SHIP can tell you what costs you are responsible for. Need help understanding the bills or statements from doctors or hospitals? SHIP can help you with the paperwork. Need assistance with filing a claim or making an appeal if care is denied?
We can talk to a beneficiary that's having a problem with a Medicare bill. For instance, I went to the doctor and my bill didn't get paid. I got a denial. What can I do? They can contact us and we can work through the Medicare system to figure out why that bill didn't get paid.
All those issues are handled by trained SHIP counselors.
We can do it either over the phone and in some cases in person. We do a lot of outreach and education where we're at health fairs or we may be doing a presentation and we can talk to individuals there. But we also have partners across the state that are our eyes and ears in areas where we can't be every single day.
Vicki notes that even if seniors have questions about other health care programs, including private insurance, SHIP can be a resource.
If they have employer insurance, long-term care insurance, Medicaid, we can give them some information so that they can make the best informed decision that is going to affect them in the long run, but be the best overall decision for them in the upcoming year.
Vicki says the best piece of advice her staff gives seniors is to look at their coverage now, ahead of the upcoming enrollment season for Medicare and for the Medicare prescription drug program. And if they have questions, don't be afraid to ask for help.
We're a good resource. We know about other programs out in the community that they may not be aware of. We are here, we're free, and we're unbiased. We're not selling anything. We're going to do what's best for them. We don't get a commission from anybody. We're strictly a federally funded program, and we're out to serve the population as a whole.
Seniors, or even their caregivers, can reach SHIP by calling 1-800-259-5300. Counselors will work with them over the phone or refer them to one of several satellite offices that SHIP operates across Louisiana. Insurance fraud is one of the most costly white-collar crimes in the country. In Louisiana alone, it costs citizens more than $2.3 billion a year through higher taxes, increased insurance premiums, and higher cost of goods and services. That's why for more than a decade, a special unit of the Louisiana Department of Insurance has been fighting back against fraud.
There are essentially three different kinds of complaints that we look at. One is the consumer being the perpetrator of the fraud, perhaps. The other is the producer being the perpetrator of the fraud. And the last would be the company itself.
No matter who is at fault, the fraud unit of the Department of Insurance will investigate.
We contact the person that's complained against and obviously obtain their side of the story, and we try to obtain as much evidence as we can from both sides that shore up their position and try to understand how it relates to the regulations that have been passed by the legislature and make sure that everyone's abiding by those, and also to see that the consumer is ultimately taken care of in some manner.
Insurance fraud can take many different forms. For example, it might involve an insurance company adjuster who tries to intentionally limit the amount of money paid out on a claim. Or it could involve a policyholder who files a phony insurance claim for a stolen car. Or what's even more likely, it might involve an insurance agent who doesn't pass on premium payments to the company.
The most common type of fraud would be, against the consumer, would be agent-related fraud. The most common, and although, like I said, relatively speaking, it's very seldom. Most agents do a wonderful job. But we have the occasional agent that looks at that money as their money to do with what they wish, and that's simply not the case.
And the best piece of advice to avoid fraud?
Do business with people you know and trust. That's probably the best thing. And take a hard look at them and make sure other people that you know and trust refer them, you know. The old-fashioned way, really.
And you may report suspicions of insurance fraud by contacting the Louisiana Department of Insurance Fraud Unit. Again, our number is 1-800-259-5300. Coming up next on your Louisiana Insurance News, the nation's financial crisis raises questions about a major insurer here in Louisiana. And if you weathered Gustav and Ike, now is not the time to let your guard down. What you still need to do before the end of the hurricane season.
The Louisiana Department of Insurance urges you to check your property insurance bill to see if you paid assessments for Louisiana Citizens Fair or coastal plans. You can get all of that money back from the state no matter who insures your property. Millions of dollars are waiting to be accessed by property owners like you. So get your refund form online at ldi.state.la.us or by calling 1-800-259-5300. That's 1-800-259-5300.
Welcome back. The recent financial crisis has certainly shaken the confidence in some financial institutions. Among them is insurance giant AIG. which the federal government recently loaned $120 billion in a bid to keep it afloat. Despite that intervention, it's important for consumers to know that the federal action will not affect the solvency of insurance policies held by Louisiana residents. AIG currently has 45 insurance companies authorized to do business in Louisiana, and those insurance subsidiaries are state-regulated and financially solvent, and most of their products are protected by the Louisiana Guarantee Fund. If you have any questions or concerns, contact your agent or the Department of Insurance. Earlier, we heard from Clarissa Preston, head of our Consumer Advocacy Office, about the types of questions consumers had about coverage and claims after the storms. We asked Clarissa to give her best advice on what consumers should do to make sure they're protected until the end of hurricane season.
Flood insurance as well as homeowners insurance needs to be purchased before the storms hit the Gulf of Mexico or wherever they may be forming. Flood insurance as well as homeowners insurance is not written once a storm has been named and is out there. So you want to make sure you purchase it ahead of time. Flood insurance is reasonably affordable in areas that are not in flood zones. But even though you're not in a flood zone, you want to go ahead and look at that flood insurance. Having a personal property inventory is great to have. For one, because when you have a loss, you're not really considering everything that was in your home. You just think about immediately the clothes or the food or the major purchases. But there are several things that are kind of irreplaceable. You have maybe some photos or some jewelry, and that jewelry may only be worth a certain amount under that policy, and you need to get a separate policy for it. So you want to make sure you do a personal property inventory to make sure you have the right coverages at the right time. And you want to go through and take video, take photos. Once you've had a storm, you want to make sure that you mitigate the damage so that you can prevent future losses. First, you need to contact your insurance company and file the claim and let them know what the damage is. And then you can make reasonable repairs. They may make some suggestions, but you don't want to do any major repairs until the adjuster has been out and they've made an assessment of the damage.
And remember, although we're out of the most active part of storm season, the actual end of hurricane season isn't until November 30th. So please, always be prepared. That's all for this edition of Your Louisiana Insurance News. I'm Commissioner Jim Donelon. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.